Hello and welcome. Recently, I have been exploring some of my all-time favorite media and viewing it from my current lens of life. The most recent film that I was drawn to is Uptown Girls, starring Brittany Murphy and Dakota Fanning. This film was released on August 15th, 2003, now making the movie as old as was the titular character Molly Gunn. The film begins on the eve of Molly's 22nd birthday. We are introduced to our protagonist as she is receiving voicemails asking where she is and also wishing her a happy birthday. Molly was napping, but she wakes up and gets ready for this little birthday shindig of hers to the tune of the song Charmed Life. This is a beautiful song for a beautiful scene, and both the song and the scene are things that have stuck with me, well, I guess for the past 22 years. Molly lives in this incredible apartment filled with all sorts of fun things. It definitely does look a bit messy, but it also looks rather whimsical. We are quickly introduced to Molly's quirky nature as she decides to use part of this candle shade as a makeshift hair accessory. We also see in this sort of opening scene her pet pig, who we later find out is named Moo. Before heading out the door, Molly grabs some cash for her purse, which she just stores in her freezer. There's just like all these loose bills in there. And as she exits her apartment, we see her hallway is just flooded with flowers. Her neighbor across the hall, complains about this, and she just kind of ignores him, gives him some flowers to give to his wife, and then continues on her way. We have this super memorable shot of Molly descending the large staircase of her apartment building, and we can see her going down the stairs as the shot is from above. And once she arrives in the lobby of her building, we see that that is also flooded with gifts. And in this, we can see that Molly is demonstrating her generous nature by giving away a gift to her doorman, Tony, and then asking him to have the rest of the gifts sent to the Salvation Army. Molly then floats out into the street and is able to very quickly get a taxi, and then she is on her way to the party scene. We enter a poppin' club and are introduced to Molly's two closest friends, her proclaimed bestie, Ingrid, and then a man named Huey. There is a short and ridiculous little scene where Molly is dancing with some guy, and he says, "You're 22? I just turned 19 and I thought I'd kill myself. Oh my god, you look great." That line is just like wild to me. And then Molly actually right after that receives a suggestion from a woman um, for getting Botox injected into her forehead, and like she's 22. Like, this isn't K-pop. What is wrong with these people? Like, 22 is not old. Unfortunately for Molly, all of this talk does get into her head, and she is in the bathroom staring at herself in the mirror and sees herself as an elderly lady, like she's Bella Swan in New Moon or something. Here we are introduced to Lorraine, our other protagonist of the film. She is an 8-year-old girl, and we quickly learn that she has some phobias, for lack of a better word. For example, Lorraine, who goes by Ray, brings her own bar of soap to wash her hands with in the bathroom, and she has it in like this little plastic container that she has in her purse. And then we also see her later in this evening take out like this entire pack of pills for like, painkillers and allergy medicine, and just she's very prepared. Huey comes in to retrieve Lorraine as we find out that Ray is actually the daughter of his boss. And Huey also tells us, aka he tells Molly, that the family's kind of going through it because they can't keep a nanny. They've been through so many nannies in such a short span of time. And it's insinuated that this kid is a real pain. And yeah, this introduces us to the film long contentious relationship between Huey, or Gooey as Ray calls him, and Ray. All three of them exit the bathroom, and we are then introduced to the character of Neil Fox, a budding musician that Huey scouted and brought to the party so that his boss Roma, who is Ray's mother, could hear him play. Molly is down bad for this boy. He performs at this party and gives a little shout out to Molly, since she's the birthday girl, and she's like giving him the eyes, but Huey warns Molly that Neil is, quote, girly free, and so she should just leave it alone. Ingrid also comments that Molly only wants this guy because she knows she can't have him. That's real. After the show slash party, Molly is able to get Neil to come home with her. She leaves him in the hallway while like sprucing up her apartment, lighting candles, and slipping into something more comfortable. Honestly, this guy seems more interested in Molly's deceased rock star father's guitar collection than he is in her, but we will find out. He grabs one of the guitars and starts singing this song that Molly's father actually wrote for and about her, and she gets really emotional and asks for him to stop. After the performance that Neil was referencing, her parents died very shortly after that, so she just doesn't really want to hear that song at this point. The two have a conversation that turns quite flirty with some Pez dispensers against the backdrop of a beautiful New York City sunrise. I will say, having lived in New York, it's rather quiet in this film sometimes when they're depicting New York, but hey, whatever. Despite Neil's so-called celibacy, he and Molly do end up consummating their connection that evening, and this inspires Neil, and he begins writing a new song. He asks Molly what she thinks about it, and she offers some advice on the song, to which Neil replies, he's not a sellout, okay? He doesn't wear purple, and he doesn't do hooks. That's not him. So after this conversation, Molly's kind of starting to get a bit irritated by him. I mean, it's implied that they've been together, I think, for like a couple of days. So she goes to hide in her bathroom and call Ingrid to complain that this weirdo guy won't leave. She tells Ingrid all this guy does is mope and play loser songs, which is just hilarious. She's actually interrupted by Neil at this point, who does finally wish to leave, but now that's making Molly kind of freak out. I would say that Molly probably has some like abandonment issues from her parents' death, but regardless, she does seem to act a little bit clingy with Neil, and yeah, you'll find out that I am 100% Team Molly here, and I find Neil quite trying as a male lead, but I do still see and recognize her less than ideal relationship behaviors. So Neil leaves, and then Ingrid comes over to find Molly just kind of depressed in her filthy apartment playing with a lighter. This will come up a bit later as well, but I feel like this scene kind of shows that Ingrid, while she does have good friendship qualities, she also just seems like she's jealous, or there's some resentment towards Molly, and I don't know, maybe just plain salt. Regardless, Ingrid does help Molly figure out that her utilities have been shut down, and they track down her money guy, but they find out from her lawyer that this man, Bob, has run off with her millions, leaving Molly completely broke. During this conversation with the lawyer, there's a funny line from Molly because she's just like in her head. And they're talking about this guy, Bob, who skipped town, and Molly just says, he'll be back. They always come back, which appears to be in reference to Money Guy Bob, but clearly I feel like she's still just like obsessing about Neil and is referring to him. So our next scene shows Ingrid actually being a good friend and helping Molly get a job at this store that she knows one of the women that works there and has connections, so she's able to get Molly the job, even though Molly doesn't have any working experience whatsoever. At this store, Molly finds 900 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets and buys them with her new employee discount. I noticed that these sheets, they're still like over $1,000, and that's $2,003. And she's totally broke, so Ingrid's kind of annoyed at her. Like, you're making these bad decisions, like you can't afford $1,000 sheets. And then it turns out the sheets aren't even for her. She actually takes them over to Neil's apartment, and I'm so sorry. I don't know how old Neil is supposed to be. Bare minimum, he's also 22, but I think he's, later into his 20s. But he has literal children's rocket ship sheets, so he's really not one to be talking when he, implies that Molly lives in like a childlike world, because, boy, no. So during this interaction, Neil actually states that, maybe he and Molly can date and have, and I quote, this is what Neil says, a mature and adult relationship. Okay, keep that in mind that he said that. Anyway, we see what we assume to be the next morning because we see Molly sleeping in the Egyptian cotton sheets, but it's revealed that she actually fell asleep on the display bed at work and is thus fired. Um, Ingrid and Huey show up, and she and Ingrid beef a little bit before Huey tells Molly that he actually has a new job for her. We see Molly in her super iconic overall dress going to pick Ray up from school as she's beginning her new job as Ray's nanny. Ray's not exactly pleased about this, but she takes it in stride. And then they arrive back at Ray's home. When they do, Molly finds out that there's this man who is in a coma who's being cared for in the library of the apartment, and there's like a nurse there that takes care of him. But when she asks Ray about it, Ray will not tell her anything. Through this sort of first larger interaction between Ray and Molly, we learn more about Ray's personality and her what seem to be compulsions. Um, and this is heavily juxtaposed with Molly's like totally carefree attitude. We also learn in this interaction that Ray's mom is almost never home and Ray is pretty much left to her own devices. Molly and Ray are after dinner doing the dishes, which it's revealed that Ray doesn't allow the maid to do the dishes because she leaves spots on the plate. So again, Ray is very particular and very sensitive to germ-related things. But Ray and Molly get into this argument, and it results in Molly quitting. And as she's on her way out, there's this swinging door that swings back in her face, so she has a bloody nose. And the day just can't get any better for her because when she returns home, it turns out that she's been evicted, and all she sees is Moo on a leash outside of her apartment door that she has been locked out of. So Molly takes Moo and heads to Neil's apartment. She's ringing on the doorbell, and we see Neil is home and looking down on her, looking at her, bloody, literally barefoot in the city, with a frickin' pig. Like, clearly this girl needs some help or some support. And he ignores her. He completely ignores her. That's a real mature adult relationship, isn't it? This scene, I guess, is where I started to really dislike Neil, but it does get worse. um, but anyway, after this, Molly moves in with Ingrid, who we do give points to for continually being willing to help Molly. Molly finds out that she does still need to pay half the rent in order to stay with Ingrid, so she asks for her nanny job back. She goes to pick up Ray, who is surprised to see her, and Molly tells Ray that her mom said she could have her job back as long as it was okay with Ray. Ray does give her another chance, and I feel like she actually really likes that Molly came back. Like, Ray is probably secretly thrilled that somebody made the effort to return and could maybe provide some consistency, which this girl obviously really needs. On their way home, Molly asks Ray why she didn't stay after ballet to do freestyle dancing with the other girls. She said it looked fun, why didn't you stay to do that? And we get a line that Ray loves to repeat, which is, fundamentals are the building blocks of fun. And I think she said that was a quote from a ballerina, but I'm not entirely sure. She also says that freestyle is for moronic little kids and hippie freaks. Ray is such a savage. I actually love her so much. Though it is, of course, important to note that that savagery really just reveals the pain inside and the dark worldview that Ray has adapted in emotional self-defense in her life. In this segment, we also see Ray giving Molly the finger, and then Molly asserts herself and makes Ray apologize, which I think kind of earns respect from Ray as well. Molly states as well that she has a surprise for Ray, and you can see that Ray is like actually really excited about it, but she doesn't want anyone to know that. The surprise ends up being Moo, who Molly gifts to Ray. Part of moving in with Ingrid was finding Moo a new home, as well as getting rid of all of her excess things. So from here we cut to Molly selling all of her stuff on the sidewalk, and I really love the dress that she's wearing in this scene. The movie itself has such great fashion. Pretty much mainly by Molly, but the other characters also wear some nice things. But during the scene where Molly is selling everything, Ingrid is there helping her, Ray is with her, and Huey is also there. And thus the Huey-Ray bickering continues because Ray sees that Huey is there, and she says, looks like Moo isn't the only pig that you hang out with, which is funny. And I like their bickering because it is funny, but I do also think it's surface level. But Huey is a character that I can't quite figure out, and I'll talk a little bit more about him later. After selling all of the stuff, Molly has her final moment in her old apartment, and Ray is there with her, and she sees all of like the guitars from Molly's father. So this is the point where Ray learns about Molly's parents and what happened to them. And this is also the point in time that it is revealed to us that the man in the coma at Ray's house is actually her father. Ray's pessimistic worldview is shown again as she states, "It's a harsh world." We get another great song for the next scene, and that would be Spinning Around the Sun. We get a montage of Molly sort of adjusting to her new life and see her doing all sorts of things. We see her trying to do her laundry and leaving a message for Neil, who we find out has not really been in contact with her. She and Ray struggle as they bathe Moo, and that's nice to see because Ray is accepting of Moo, but she does want him to be clean. We see Molly at Ingrid's apartment doing yoga with her, and then almost burning down that apartment from a baking mishap. Okay, so again in this scene, we see Ingrid kind of put Molly down and behind her back too, which just emphasizes that Molly really needs to surround herself with better people. We've already established, or we are establishing, that Neil is trash. Ingrid is now continuing to demonstrate her weird, jealous, definitely patronizing energy towards Molly. And I think Huey, although I can't technically prove it, I think that he's very into Molly. He doesn't actually act on this though, thankfully, and I would actually consider him like her best support throughout this film. But there's just like something amiss there. I'll also just take the time now to shout out the Brittany Murphy, Donald Faison, Clueless connection, as they both star in that film as well, which is another favorite of mine. Okay, so anyway, Neil's lucky jacket that Molly has been keeping and wearing, which I do acknowledge is very odd. The jacket is a casualty of the baking fire, and we see that Molly has to completely restyle it. The last scene that's included in this song sequence is Molly going to pick up Ray, and she discovers that Ray is in a fight with a girl after school. At first, Molly breaks it up and tells Ray that there's never an excuse for hitting another human being, which, yes, I love. But then Ray reveals that the girl's au pair had called Molly a slut bag whore, and this is timed so perfectly with the song as well. Then we get Molly fighting with the au pair, echoing back the fight that Ray just had. And it's really sweet to see that by this point in the film, Ray is feeling very protective and defensive of Molly, and yeah, that's just nice to see. So as the song itself actually ends, we see Molly doing her fashion things to Neil's jacket when the man himself finally decides to call her. Molly and Neil meet up at like a diner sort of thing, and Molly is just yapping up a storm. Finally, Neil reveals that he signed a deal with Schlein Records, which is Roma's company, and he takes Molly back to his place so that she can listen to the completed track, which is entitled Sheets of Egyptian Cotton, complete with a hook. Very, very clearly, Molly's influence has helped him create this hit song. Molly gives Neil the updated jacket after this, and he is not happy about that, which I do completely understand. If I had like an item that I thought was lucky and someone comes back with it like completely changed into something else, I would understandably be upset as well. But then at this point, Neil says that, you know, they have to talk, and Molly gives a funny line that says that "we have to talk" are the four most hateful words in the English language. But anyway, yeah, Neil ends the situationship there, and Molly is not pleased and kind of goes off on him and is like, "Oh, you just wanted to do the famous, or the daughter of like a famous rock star and tell all your loser friends, blah, 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 blah." It's like, "Oh, it's not like that." And then she leaves, and the scene ends. I don't think I've actually explicitly mentioned this yet, but Neil does have an accent. The next day, Molly is having a tea party with Ray, and Ray comments that she can't have cream in her tea as her recital is coming up and she can't gain weight. I really wish at this point Molly would have said something, because that does not seem healthy for a very healthy looking 8-year-old girl to be concerned about the tiniest bit of cream and about gaining weight. And I'm not saying that like professional ballerinas don't have to have that consideration, but for an 8-year-old girl that already has some other sort of issues, for lack of better word, like we don't need to be reinforcing like issues with body image and food and weight. I just, I don't know. Was it the biggest deal in the world? No. And was this 2003? Yes. But yeah, just something that I took note of. Maybe Molly didn't notice because she's so depressed and acting kind of downtrodden. And then Ray accurately comments, "Are you still moping over that disgusting guy?" She also then gives advice that I would give to girls in this situation as well, which is do something for yourself, something you're good at, instead of being sad about, as she said, disgusting men. Okay, our next scene is between Molly and Ingrid, and there's a lot in this scene, I would say. So Molly starts talking about the fact that she has a date with a normal adult guy, which I'm in full support of, by the way. Um, but then Ingrid is like, she had made plans for the both of them like quite a while ago, which um, Molly does not want to go to. And Molly makes this point about how like Ingrid can't control her life, and just because she's her roommate and she's helped her, like Molly doesn't owe her all of her time. And Ingrid takes out her anger onto Molly at this point. And side note, but I really feel like Ingrid is definitely a Virgo. And um, I was thinking about Molly too, thinking that she might have some like Pisces or Aquarius in her. But the film does later give her exact date of birth, and she's an Aries. Like, what? But I feel like she gives off way more of an air or water sign vibe. But anyway, so they're fighting, and I do think Molly should have been respectful of the agreement that she made with Ingrid to attend this event, but I do also think Ingrid is controlling and, as I've said before, like patronizing and all of that. So this ends in a fight wherein they are no longer cohabitating, and Molly moves in with Huey. Huey and Molly are off partying together out at night, and Molly spots Roma. Roma doesn't even recognize Molly at first, which is really sad because this is her daughter's nanny, the person that she's spending so much time with. Like, you really should know who that is. But Molly is asking her, like, oh, since it's my day off and you're here, who is at Ray's ballet recital? Well, it turns out that nobody was, and we do have a scene of Ray, like, looking out into the crowd, and that's really sad. The next day, it's still a day off for Molly, but she decides to go to see Ray anyway, and she wants to take her to Coney Island to ride the spinning teacups. We learn on their way that Ray has never been to an amusement park, which demonstrates this theme that we've noticed about Ray not really getting to experience many childlike things. Molly makes Ray try a hot dog before they were going to go on the rides, which is in some ways funny because we learned earlier on in the film that the reason that Molly has Moo as a pet is that she actually saved him from being her meal when she was in Thailand. But now she's okay with eating pork, or what we assume is pork anyway. Um, but after the hot dog situation, which Ray does try, um, unfortunately, it turns out the girls are a week early and the rides were not yet running. Ray is kind of disappointed in this, and they head home. Molly opens up emotionally and tells Ray about how she ran away to Coney Island after her parents died, and that she just went and kept spinning on the teacups. She shared that she feels like she's still there, just spinning round and round, and she's too scared to get off the ride. Molly sleeps in Ray's room that night, and after Ray falls asleep, she goes to the library to visit her dad. The next morning, Molly's awake. She gets up and heads to the kitchen looking for Ray, and there's someone hidden behind the refrigerator door, and it is revealed to be a shirtless Neil. Neil is like, "Oh, Molly, what are you doing here?" And Molly's like, I happen to work here," which, by the way, I think during her yap session at the diner that night, she was talking about her job. And she definitely was talking about her job on the phone message that she left for him when she was doing her laundry. So she has told him about her job, and he just either wasn't listening or forgot, which is incredibly rude on his behalf. And then B, he freaking slept with Roma, who, okay, side note, I forgot to mention this. She's played by Heather Locklear, who is beautiful and who I love from her Melrose Place fame. But yeah, we hear her saying, "Don't forget the sugar, sugar." And then Molly just like looks at him and leaves without saying a word. The next scene also goes down as being really iconic in my mental history. And this is Molly like running to Central Park, and she's kind of crying and just like keeping to herself. And we see she fatefully encounters like all of the love and connection that she no longer has. So as she's walking, she sees these two young girls that are like best friends laughing together. She no longer has Ingrid in her life, so that reminds her of that. She is walking and she sees this couple kissing on a park bench. Ugh, rip the Neil situation. And then the last one that really sends her over the edge is she sees a young girl like just having a nice day in the park with her dad. She is like overcome with emotions and gets to this bridge in the park, climbs on top of the bridge, and then jumps into the pond. Side note, please do not follow her example and do this ever. um, Molly is wafting in the disgusting pond water, and a couple of elderly bystanders are there, like gawking and telling her, that water's contaminated. And one lady was even like threatening to call the police if she doesn't get out. And I love the way that Molly replies, like just the tone in her voice. She's just so done. She's like, yeah, I'm getting out. Like, as I said, very iconic scene for me. Anyway, the contaminated water does in fact affect her and she gets sick. And Ray takes care of her. Molly then also shares with Ray that she heard that coma patients, when people talk to them, sometimes like they do better or there's more hope there. So Ray goes and actually starts talking to her dad. It's actually very sweet as she's telling him like about her current interests. She tells him about Moo, like I got this pet pig and I'm really into ballet these days. And I just have to wonder, like, before he fell into this coma, like, did maybe he have that open, curious parental relationship with Ray? And did things only change after he was in the coma? Like, has Roma always been this way? These are questions we don't get answers to, but we can think about them. um, After this scene, it's later in the day. Molly's at home with Huey, and she's making Ray a little tutu because she thinks that the regular outfits are like too boring and she knows the recital's coming up and it's actually a really cute little outfit. But at this time, Molly and Huey watch the music video for Sheets of Egyptian Cotton, and Neil is an absolute loser sellout who wears Molly's purple jacket, which he said he would never do. And first of all, the song is a banger. Like, I love it. It is really good, so props to whoever actually made it and sang it. Um, but his song and his video success are so like largely connected to Molly, like her ideas, her creativity, her personality. Like he would not even have known what Egyptian cotton is. The jacket, the hook, like it all stemmed from her. So just putting that out there. Sadly then though, Molly is like, oh, but he is the Lizard King. Like he is so cool though. And then this is like again Huey's weird energy because he's like, like girl, I'm the Lizard King, okay? Like anything that he is, I'm the real that. Like he's an illusion. And this made me think like, uh-oh, are you trying to say like you're who Molly would really like? But then it does not end that way. It ends with like them saying true friends, true hearts, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm going to choose to see their friendship in a positive light, and I'm going to choose to view Huey the Lizard King in a positive light as well. There is then a knock at the door, and Moo is mysteriously delivered to them. Molly is confused, so she goes to see Ray, and she finds out that Ray's father had passed away earlier that day. Ray is actually extremely angry at Molly for like giving her false hope, I guess, about talking to her dad, and she doesn't even want to talk to her or see her. Roma fires Molly per Ray's request, and Molly goes off on Roma before leaving, which I think is great. She tells her that she should really pay more attention to her daughter, and she rips up the severance check that Roma had given her. Molly is not done with her queendom yet this evening because as she leaves the building, we find our buddy Neil is there waiting to talk to her. He calls her his muse, no shit, and then complains about having not been able to write a good song since he last saw her. Molly is not interested in the Neil BS anymore, and that makes him like attack her, and he blames her for everything essentially. She clocks him for who he is and tells him that she's not the one with the problem. He is. Him and his selfishness. She goes on to say that all he does is take, and she just has nothing left to give anymore, so maybe he should start thinking about someone other than himself. I love this entire little sequence, and I do recognize that I see myself and my own past relationship dynamics kind of represented here, but as is shown in the movie and in real life, the magical girl's creativity reserves are never empty, as they are inherent to her. Whereas the typically male user, who siphoned that energy for his own personal gain, eventually comes up dry and will have to seek out his muse or yet another supply if he's too embarrassed to go back to that source. So, in the end, lessons are learned on hopefully on both sides, and growth can occur. And growth is what happens with Molly, as this kind of marks a turn for her. We see that Molly finally sells her father's guitar collection, and we also see that she has acquired a new apartment for herself, and she takes Huey to go see it. It's a really small little thing, and it's a far cry from her old penthouse, but she's loving the fact that she's standing on her own 2 feet, and I love that for her. While they're in this new apartment, Huey gets a call from Roma, and it turns out that Ray's missing. In this moment, there's like a scene where we see Roma, on the phone, and she has the cops next to her looking for her missing daughter. And if we're ever going to give grace to her, we could do it now. Um, we don't know what she used to be like, and the fact that her husband was in a coma and then passed away, plus the pressure of running this large business, we can see that she might be secretly dealing with a lot and running away from her emotions. This does not excuse the neglect of her daughter or make that situation any better, but maybe it helps us understand her character more. So Molly runs off to find Ray, and we see the staircase scene from the earlier in the film echoed again, as she now runs down the stairs in her new tiny apartment. And this is just kind of a stark reminder of how much has changed and how much Molly has changed since the beginning of the film. Molly goes to Coney Island as she feels that that's where Ray may have run off to, and she is correct in that assumption. Um, Finally, Molly and Ray are able to ride the spinning teacups together and release some of the pent up emotions that they both have. Molly and Ray also make up at this scene as well, and afterwards, we cut to the service for Ray's father. Molly is kind of socializing with some of the people there, and then she gets requests from Mark McGrath and Dave Navarro, legitimately, to make costumes for them after they had seen Neil's new music video, and his jacket was just so cool that they want the same stylist that worked on that. So that's pretty cool, and that's like a new path that's opening for Molly. Also present at this service is Ingrid, and we can see she's totally crying, and she does seem very sad and upset and like she really misses Molly, and the two just kind of wordlessly make up, and I guess it's like a sweet reconciliation. We hope for a better, more communicative relationship and friendship for them in the future. Then Molly has a scene with Ray wherein Ray offers Molly her old nanny job back, but Molly says that she doesn't want the job, she just wants to be friends with Ray instead. And Ray says something about how, like, oh, grown-ups never stay friends with kids, and Molly says that she doesn't see any grown-ups around, which is something that Ray had said throughout the film, calling Molly a child and not an actual grown-up. But then in reply to that, Ray says, well, she does see a grown-up there, thus demonstrating Molly's character growth, and also it's just super freaking sweet. We then see Molly interviewing to attend the Fashion Institute, and during this like interview with the school personnel, Molly is asked like why she's interested in attending the Fashion Institute, and with all of her connections and friends, like why doesn't she just go work for them? It would be so much easier. And we get yet another nice callback wherein Molly says that fundamentals are the building blocks of fun. We cut to our final scene of the film, which is Ray's ballet recital. We see Roma is backstage helping Ray get ready. She's wearing the tutu that Molly made her, and it's just really sweet to see Roma now taking more of an interest in Ray's life, and we're happy for this character development, and we hope that it continues. And also backstage is Moo for some reason, so we also like to see Moo. Molly arrives at the recital. She's a little bit late, and she's making her way through the crowd to get her middle seat. And there's a big surprise waiting for Molly, as during Ray's solo performance, Neil is there, and he sings Molly's Smiles, which is the song that he had started to sing earlier in the film, the song that her father wrote for her. And it's revealed that he was the one to buy Molly's dad's guitar collection, and he uses her dad's favorite guitar to then perform this song for her. Before he starts singing, he has a line that I really, really like actually, which is this. He says, "There's someone here today that lent us a bit of her magic, and now we'd like to give some of it back." So yes, we love this. Reciprocity, making amends, him thinking of someone other than himself, people growing, people forgiving. We love it all. But more than that, I doubly love the fact that during this performance, Molly is just totally focused on Ray and her performance, and she's so happy to see her like looking and acting happier and more free. And the movie ends on Molly's smile, and I really like that we don't see what happens after this. The final scenes of the film prove the effect that Molly and Ray have had on each other. They really balanced each other out very well, and Ray became more childlike and free, and Molly learned to become more empowered and responsible. We see this in Ray's freestyle performance at her recital, and we saw it with Molly's Fashion Institute interview for her growth. But we also just have seen this throughout the film. But obviously, it becomes more evident as the movie reaches its conclusion. As for Molly and Neil, I think it's best to leave that open. I didn't mean to totally hate on him, and everyone is capable of growing and being forgiven. However, I still am not sure that he deserves Molly. And also, like, she did ask him, like, to not sing the song Molly Smiles at the beginning of the film, and he does it anyway. And it's kind of weird that he's singing her this song about being daddy's little girl, and playing her literal daddy's guitar. So psychologically, that's a bit much, but nevertheless, it is a beautiful ending to the film. My overall reaction to this movie is just one of appreciation and joy. It's a fun watch, and more than that, I found myself kind of surprised by how much I related to Molly's character. Overall, I think that this just shows that we can allow ourselves and others to grow, and beyond any of that, the real magic comes from being ourselves. The right people notice you and see you for who you are, and the more that you can stay true to your authentic self, the more you align yourself with the opportunities that are truly meant for you. Additionally, this shows that in times of change and transition, even when things are really difficult, you never know how that might end up contributing to your brighter future. Some challenges in life do end up working out for our greatest good, so maybe we can just be present in our lives and trust that we will find our way through. Let's all recognize the magic within and live out our charmed lives. Thank you so much for watching this. I would love to hear about your perspective about this film or anything I had to say about it in the comments. And feel free to like this video if you did in fact like it. Moving forward, I'm going to continue to make random videos about random media that I enjoy. So if you like listening to me talk, there might be something for you in the future, who knows? But anyway, take care, my friends, and have a great day.